I'm Daniel Dekay, and this is my Guitarsenal. In this series, I look forward to giving you my take on some awesome pieces of gear, how I've incorporated them into my live sound, and how you can too. But this show isn't just about me. We're going to be running down the Guitarsenals of other notable musicians, talking to them about why they chose those rigs. We're going to be demoing cool gear, wacky gear, classic gear, but most importantly, some good stories from the road and lessons learned from those, because I made the mistakes, so you don't have to. So to kick things off for the first episode, I thought, where better to begin than talk about the live rig that I play with Exciter. Now this is tried and tested. I've been using it on the road for the last 2 years and I absolutely love it. Now, it didn't always sound like this, it didn't always look this way. This is the result of lots of trial and error, but before we get into the meat of the rig, let's talk about my unhealthy obsession with flying Vs. If you've ever seen me live or know anything about me, you've probably seen me with one of these in my hands, so let's start there. The flying V dates back all the way to the 50s, when things were really starting to look futuristic. The rocket age was upon us and everything from cars to guitars were starting to have that crazy future look. Now, ultimately, the world wasn't ready for it, and the flying V was a total flop. And it wasn't until the 70s and 80s till it really gained the momentum in hard rock and heavy metal that we know and love today. Now, of course, my obsession with flying Vs directly starts in that 70s and 80s era. Man, you look at photos of James Hetfield, Randy Rhoads, KK Downing, Michael Schenker. How could I not fall in love with that amazing body shape and badass look? It was the epitome of everything heavy, the epitome of everything metal, and when it came time for me to buy my first electric, the V was the only choice. So the V I'm holding right now is my main Exciter guitar. It's tuned in D standard. It is the E2 MK1. It's the Millie Petroza Signature Series made by ESP in their Japanese shop. It features these screaming hot Fishman Fluence pickups, got a Floyd Rose, it's got this sexy clean fretboard. This is everything you could want in a metal guitar. What's really awesome about these Fishman Fluence pickups is they got the active voice and the passive voice. So got a lot of variety, all packaged in a double arrow classic ESP body. This thing is a beast. Now, after guitars, the obvious step is to talk about amplification. Now, I must say, I was a JCM 800 faithful forever. But as I started touring with Exciter and using more rented backline, I started to realize that Marshalls all sound different. I needed something a little bit more reliable, and I ended up with the PV6505. This is an amp that no matter where you get it in the world or what year it was made from, they all sound perfect. I like to run that 6505 into 2 Marshall straight 1960 cabs, ultimate heavy metal tone. That's my Exciter amp setup in a nutshell. But there are a couple things I will not leave the house without when I'm gigging, and one of those things is my pedal board. First off, an absolutely vital part of my setup is having a variety of different boosts for solos or just different types of riffs. Because when you're the only guitar player in your band, the last thing you want to do is have one tone all night and bore everyone's eardrums. In total, I rock 3 different types of overdrive. I rock the little EP booster when I'm doing things that are wah solos, the MXR boost line driver when I'm doing a real big solo that needs to soar over the band, and then for my third boost, if I'm looking for something to push the mids a little bit, add a little bit of dirt onto it, and really make it soar above the rest of the band for an extended solo section, the Stone Deaf PDF. This is the original PDF one. I have the dirty setting on. It adds a little bit of extra grit. I have it pushing the mids. It absolutely sings. Don't forget your novelty pedals. I've got an MXR Phase 90 for those Ace Frehley moments, and I also use a TC Electronics sub and up when I want to sound really silly. Now, in my experience playing hundreds of shows, lugging around these V's and pedals, I've kind of made a few mistakes and learned some things from it. So let's see if you can learn from my mistakes too. Number 1, first and foremost, 90-degree angled patch chords. They cost the exact same as all the other patch chords, and they are so much more useful, specifically if you're playing a V with an input on the front, man. I absolutely destroyed one of my favorite guitars with an input on the front because I snagged on it the wrong way. It was a straight jack and it ripped the input out in the middle of a show. Don't do that. Next, flying with your instruments. There are many things you can do to make sure you don't end up with these kind of chips all over the bottom of your guitar. It's actually really simple and something like a total life hack you might not have thought of. You take off your chuck, you take your sock, and you put your sock on the fin of the V. You can bunch it up, wrap it around, and then force it back into the case like that. Extra layer of protection. Let me let you in on the best kept, for some reason, secret. You gotta change your Floyd Rose strings one at a time, man. Don't try taking them all off. The bridge will sink completely into the body. I did it the first time I had a Floyd Rose. I remember going to the music store, puzzled as to what the hell I had done, and they kind of laughed at me and said, dude, one string at a time, be patient, tune it, and then tune it 3 more times. You'll get there. It's a tricky, little finicky piece of gear, but it's so worth it for those dive bombs. Well, that's been my Guitarsenal, but you know we want your input. Drop it down in the comments what you want to hear me talking about, what you want to see me play. And until next time, remember, my friends, stay tuned.